Before we begin tonight's show, I'd like to start on a serious note. Tonight, we are recording on territory that is not ours, and we would like to acknowledge that we are recording this podcast on Pod Save American land. We honor the podcasters who came before us, boldly giving voice to men in a space where we had none. We thank them for their support, their stewardship, and everything they've built before us. And with that, welcome to Nobody Knows Anything.
Nobody knows anything.
Welcome to Nobody Knows Anything. I'm Rob Flaherty.
I'm Jesse Lyric.
And we have a star-studded, super-packed show tonight for you. We have J.D. Vance's losing streak, Alyssa Slotkin's presidential campaign in waiting, the single most dispiriting governor's race I can imagine, Chuck Schumer in retreat. We talk about the White House Correspondents Dinner, and we have a special guest, Brian Tyler Cohen, stopping by. Good to be with one of our peers in terms of viewership and influence.
Between us and Brian Tyler Cohen, we have upwards of 2 million followers.
It is really outstanding. We are grateful to you for watching, the literal dozens of you who have joined the stream. Hello to both of our moms. We made a big deal about this show being live and how that is part of the unvarnished takes that we're going to give you. Unfortunately, we had a catastrophic internet failure today.
Off to a great start.
And so out of safety's sake, we are coming to you live from 2 hours ago. We are pre-recording tonight, and then we will be live starting hopefully Thursday, definitely next Sunday. So you are in the future, and we are in the past. As we are
washed up losers, so that checks out.
We start tonight with the National Action Network, Al Sharpton's annual confab, a.k.a. Sharpcella, where all the 2028ers are going to speak to influential African Americans in the Democratic primary.
That is right, Rob. Pretty much everyone who's in the conversation for 2028 making the pilgrimage to New York City for Sharpton Fest, National Action Network Convention. As you said, a critical battle for Black support already shaping up for 2028, as the New York Times says here. It's wide open, the Black vote, and, well, we'll talk a little bit about that. Kamala Harris, it's not wide open if she runs.
Yeah.
Not that she will hold on to it necessarily, but she definitely starts out with a massive lead. And I think it's true, though. If she doesn't run, it's really hard to know exactly where that vote goes. And I got the... I got this data point here. As you can see, the last, every nominee since 1992 has dominated the Black vote. So you basically need to win the Black vote if you would like to be the Democratic nominee for president.
It is, I would say this, it is the rule that is the most important about the primary, is that none of us are the most important person in the Democratic Party. You watching may think you are the most important person in the Democratic Party, or people, in Washington or whatever. The most important person in the Democratic Party is a 68-year-old retired postal worker who is a African-American woman, and if she doesn't like you, you are not going to be president of the United States as a Democrat.
How do you know that there's not 68-year-old Black women from South Carolina watching our feed, Rob?
That's true.
We're super popular.
I'm starting from the place of it's literally just our moms. So
correct.
That's true.
That is correct.
Hello to all of those South Carolinians who
Yes.
are watching the show
Vote for
tonight.
Rob.
Vote for me.
The attendees included Governor Wes Moore, Senator Ruben Gallego, Governor Josh Shapiro, Congressman Ro Khanna, Senator Mark Kelly, former Vice President Kamala Harris, Governor J.B. Pritzker, former Mayor Pete, Transportation Secretary Pete, Andy Beshear, Governor of Kentucky, and Cory Booker, Senator from New Jersey.
Wow.
So it's a pretty full cast.
You know what I have to say? There's been many things that have been a learning experience about transitioning to being a creator.
Yeah.
As we both are. Graphics are a pain, man.
Dude, huge pain in the ass.
I mean, I appreciate the amount of effort you put into this.
It was honestly not worth it.
Yeah.
I almost skipped the slide by accident. Anyways, going ahead here, we were talking about Kamala Harris. This is crosstabs aggregated from a bunch of different polls by Adam Carlson from a few months ago. As you can see, Kamala at 42% with the Black vote and nobody else even close. Gavin loosely hanging in the picture at 13% and nobody else over 5%. And I mean, like, that says a lot, Rob. We talked about, the domination of the Black vote being essential to who becomes the nominee. Kamala starting with a significant lead here, and you work for her. if everyone had listened to you famously, she would be president right now. But
That's
unfortunately,
100%.
other people overrode all of your best wisdom. What do you think? Like, she seems to. We'll get into it a little bit. We'll play some clips from her. But like, is she going to run again? Should she run again? Is she being disrespected by being written off here with like a dominant position that she starts the primary from?
Yeah. My basic take is that if Kamala Harris were to call me, and
Which she might.
which she won't, she will
won't.
not call me. But,
But she has his
ma'am,
number.
thank you for watching the feed tonight. We really do appreciate it. What I'll say is, if I were her, if she gets in the race, it is going to be it's going to turn into a referendum on her candidacy, how good she did in 2024, the mistakes she made. That is all going to be litigated. But you look at these numbers, they're really good. I mean, Black voters are with Kamala Harris. And there's this thing where I think people want to kind of ignore that fact and sort of write it off and say, I mean, I don't know, she's running again. But we'll really talk about Gavin. The fact is, until those numbers break, she is a formidable candidate in 2028. And I also have to say this. I also think that is why it is probably not wise for her to jump in, because if she, rather than being attacked all the time on her record, she is in this position where she is the most popular person with this voting bloc, and it puts her in a position to be basically the kingmaker in the party versus sort of being a person who is going to just sort of be ruthlessly attacked by everybody else for a really long time in a way that may be effective.
Yeah.
I think it's a gamble. But again, I think that everybody is writing her off at their peril and is sort of treating her as a sideshow. And like, her numbers are real.
Right.
They are very real,
Right.
and they're very deep.
And I will say it's not just name recognition, because you do get that. Like, it's way too early to be pulling this stuff. Way too early, arguably, to be writing a stupid blog where I, endlessly cover everything that these people do. But like, it's not just early numbers. When you look at the Black vote, then you look at the book events she's been doing across the South, and it's like every one of these events, she's like selling out crowds of, 5,000 people, and there's like screaming fans, primarily Black audiences, especially younger women, older women. Like, this is real. She has real support. And at the same time, like, if I was her, I would not run it back. Like, I do worry about I don't think people really want to relive 2024. And I wouldn't say most of that is her fault. She was handed a very difficult card with a super unpopular sitting administration, and she was the vice president. She didn't do enough, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, to draw a distinction between her and Biden, set herself apart from the unpopular president. I just don't see it going well if she runs. Well, I agree with you that she's being like written off way too casually here. But I don't know. I think it's a dicey path to go down, and it would be hard to be like the former vice president and nominee and like end up having another campaign where you don't make it to the first contest. Not that that's what would happen, but it seems not implausible to me.
Yeah. Again, I think she's formidable. I think she's a candidate you have to take seriously. If it were me looking at it, I would say I would like to be the uncontested most influential person in the primary,
right.
versus somebody who is going to be attacked all day, every day, and potentially, have a worse downside.
Yep. I mean, you can see both sides. It's hard to look at those numbers and just be like, I'm going to walk away, you know? So I totally get it. Politico here. Kamala Harris draws the most buzz at Dems' first 2028 cattle call. As we talked about, like, the support is real. There is like the vibes in the room were electric when she was being announced and walking forward, and we'll see that in a second. Politico says former Vice President Kamala Harris packed the hall to the capacity and was met with multiple standing ovations and chants urging her to run again. Governor Wes Moore also brought the audience to his feet, and Senator Booker closed out the convention's candidate appearances with a fiery speech that crescendoed into sustained applause from the crowd. So, those are the three Black candidates that, or potential candidates that made the pilgrimage there. And then we got Gallego, Kelly, Buttigieg, and Pritzker, and we'll tick through some of these. But, and again, Harris, after this will be making her way, couple stops across the South, which again, she's doing all of the things that you would do if you were going to run. She's certainly giving herself the option to do it and doing it in a way that positions her as strongly as possible. And that's exactly what she should be doing if she thinks it's something she might consider. Here she is. And you'll see in this clip, both the like overwhelming support for her And then you'll see the second part that I think is also important.
So are you going to run again in 28?
Listen, I might. I'm thinking about it. One thing I'm really clear about also is the status quo is not working and hasn't been working for a lot of people for a long time.
I think that, that's just tough to run on that argument. The status quo is not working and hasn't been working for a long time, including when I was vice president for 4 years. I just think that that's going to be a hard thing to outrun.
It's tricky, but it's, by the way, the bind that she was in 24 with all of us, right?
Right.
Which is that, you're in a position where it is a status quo election, but you can't authentically say, well, I'm the change agent when
Right.
I'm the vice president. She was stuck to a pretty unpopular situation.
Yeah.
And that's hard. And so you can see she's trying to say, I'm doing it right this time.
Right.
But it's a tough case to make. And by the way, I think it's a tough case to make for, candidly, anybody involved with the last administration. Hey there.
That's why Rob is reduced
that's why
doing
I'm
a
here.
fake show.
That's why I'm here talking to all 12 of you.
Oh man. But yeah, you can hear the crowd buzzing. It was electric in there when she said she wanted to run again or was considering running again. And I think that is real. And Pete Buttigieg came on later in the day. I have, as is my profession, I guess, I have watched all 10 of these performances. I thought Pete was good. He obviously has a lot of work to do with the black vote. That is the number one thing that people ask when they're like, oh, Pete's going to run it back. How is he going to reach black voters? Because famously, that was his biggest problem last time. And I thought he was quite good. I actually think Pete is a better politician than he was back then. I think partly since him and Chasten adopted twins, he's more human and he emotes better. He does a better job of connecting with people. At the same time, it was such a tough spot coming on after Kamala because she's just everyone's like, fuck yeah, run again, we love you. And then it's and now the whitest man you've ever seen is going to come out. Half the crowd was filing out. No offense to Pete. They were just all right, we saw the main event. There's a reason headliners normally come on last. Yeah. And he was wait, I've got stuff to say too. So I thought he did pretty well. But again, there's some natural enthusiasm here that I think others are going to struggle to create.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
One person who I don't think is going to struggle to create that, Governor Wes Moore. I got a clip here, and he is one of the only Democrats that you hear from that kind of makes you want to run through a wall. And this was kind of the crescendo of his speech.
So the thing I want people to know is this: what I'm most proud of, I was raised right by my family. I was trained right by the United States Army, and I serve a mighty God. And I know where my strength comes from. I know who woke me up this morning. I know who's going to put me to bed tonight. I know who orders my steps. I know who guides my words. And I know where my power comes from and who I lean on for my power. And that's what I want the people to know.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was impressive. It was impressive on a couple of things. One, you could feel him feeling the crowd and whatever, but also a very dexterous, a lot of words weaving into words,
Dude, he is overwhelmingly charismatic is how I would describe it. And in a way where he's got that magnetism where it's not just that he's memorized a couple lines. As you said, I think very astute observation that he feels the energy, he feeds off the energy. And one of the few Dems who can kind of extemporaneously break into speech like that and just rev the troops up in a way where you're oh shit, I haven't felt that in a while from a Democrat, because most of them are meh, here's my Donald Trump is bad talking point, And so Wes and the crowd was on their feet for much of his performance here. Again, he's said that he's not going to run in 2028. Nobody believes him.
Yeah.
I think believing him will be a ongoing challenge that they'll have to overcome. They're, one of the things that hangs over him, fair or not, is, these questions about his biographical background. Nobody can debate that he has an unbelievable story, kind of came from nothing and became a Rhodes Scholar and a decorated war veteran. And, he's an incredibly compelling guy. And I would put him in a top tier just in terms of that raw talent is just through the roof. And he really does inspire in a way that I don't think many in the party do. But I don't know. What do you think about Wes?
I think Wes is a really, really talented person. What I am interested to see is how does he do on retail. Like we've seen him like crushing beers in the Ravens parking lot and things like that. I think it'll be interesting to see does the polish. I think that we're in a cycle where people want the kind of raw, like unvarnished, whatever, and it'll be interesting to see how this like style that he has, which is like incredibly charismatic on the stump, incredibly sort of magnetic, but like it's almost sometimes I'm like, how did you do that? Like it's a little bit like Pete, right? Where it's like it's so clean that you're like, are you a guy? Like and so it'll be interesting to see how that connects.
That's totally right. And, I've got one more clip for you here from Nan, and this one's Josh Shapiro, and he's kind of the third guy I would put in that tier of just like, super polished, super communicator, but in a way where you're like, does he sound too much like a politician? Like, again, it feels weird to knock someone for being like so good at this that you're like, I don't know, that seems too polished. Like that's too clean. But, I will say, like, Shapiro did really, really well, and I was impressed by that. He comes into this crowd. I don't know how high his name recognition is nationally compared to some of the other folks here. And he really seemed to be winning over the crowd, and partly by, he kind of he actually has a clear narrative and like theory of the case, which is important. Like knowing what you believe in and what you're selling and where you think the country should go actually is quite helpful. And he doesn't alter it. He wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do a bunch of, things that I think that this crowd will want. He's like, here's what I believe in, and here's why I think it'll be helpful to everyone. And it was quite well received.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to run on that GSD agenda. I'm going to run on how we've made people's lives better, their schools, their safety, their economic opportunity, how we've defended our freedom, and how we've defended all people in our state and still managed to create more opportunity, showing that our diversity is a strength, not a weakness, as Donald Trump thinks. I believe that GSD approach, showing people that government can make their lives a little bit better, whether they're going down to the DMV or whether they're trying to get their kid the healthcare services that they need. A byproduct of making government work is that person walks away with their problem solved and maybe just a little less cynical.
I mean, he's really good, and like I do think both him and Wes Moore have this like balanced, like they're giving the hope and optimism that I think people are going to want, but in a way that doesn't feel like totally detached from the reality that a lot of people feel things are pretty shitty. It's not just like, oh, we're going to run back hope and change, Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about Shapiro?
I think Shapiro's great. I mean, the same sort of thing. Talented political athlete. Like same sort of question I have about Moore is like, polished, too polished. And I think that he clearly did well in that audience, and there's something to be said for like a more like practical results driven thing, and you have to kind of look at him and take him seriously because he is an incredibly popular governor in the most important state in the country. I think he's going to run into some like choppy waters on the Israel-Gaza stuff and all the above, but clearly a compelling case.
Yeah, and I think like he's got a couple other things going for him that, one is that he's from one of the most important swing states in Pennsylvania and has won overwhelmingly there. It helps to run against like a Nazi, which was basically what Doug Mastriano was. And so that would help him, notch a 15-point victory. I think though he's on, every poll right now is showing him up 18 to 22 points on Stacey Garrity, which again, that's super compelling. And then he's had to govern, with a bipartisan or a split legislature, so he still has a bunch of stuff to point to that he's gotten done, which I think that is just like an important selling point. A couple other things I wanted to flag quickly here. The one other thing I'll say about Shapiro and Moore and Pritzker and like Bashir, I do think there is going to be a major advantage to being a governor and having a real record to point to versus being in Congress. It was just like evident as you're making pitches to people who aren't super familiar with your backgrounds. It's like Bashir gets to make the case that he was like doing all of this in a R+30 state or whatever, and he's still standing up for, marginalized communities and like getting stuff done. And like Shapiro, Pritzker, Moore, they all have a ton of accomplishments to point to that, people, as they're familiarizing themselves with people. They can make those points rather than just being like, I was fighting to make things a little less shitty in Congress, and my amendment was accepted one time. So one other thing here, like tweet from Dan Turntine, who was at the conference. He's talking about how Mark Kelly made a surprise drop by to sort of like off the record private reception the night before his speech, and he was the only one to do that. Like, there are other parts to politics than being good at talking on videos and podcasts, although I would argue the only thing that
matters is coming on. Nobody knows anything.
Nobody knows anything.
You have to do well. Come into the dojo.
The toughest test you can have. But like that kind of stuff matters. And you could see it when he was on the next day, because Sharpton was like, thanks again for coming and staying the whole time. And he was better received by the crowd because they were like, I like this guy.
Super
that
smart.
kind of shit matters.
Kelly, surprising like that, can also raise a lot of money. I mean, obviously it's because he's being harassed by the Trump administration, but he's got some real grassroots energy too. Which is
I call it Trump pumping, which is just get targeted by Donald Trump. Step one, step two, raise shit tons of money, and then again with the other parts.
Please
of
target our show, Donald. Please sue us.
AOC, I thought it was surprising that AOC didn't go. She, represents the Bronx, and it was in New York City. You would think that she, even if you're not planning to run for president, but I don't know what's going on in her life. She may have had legitimately important things conflicting. Who am I to say? And then finally here, we got the one question that's always kind of like bubbling in the background, but it was interesting to see it reported out here, is that question of like, but really we just want someone who can win. After 4 more years of Trump and all of the disasters we're already in, we just want someone who can win. And it is, there are times where it seems like it's more, older black women who are like, hell no, we just need a straight white guy. Whereas us straight white guys are like, we don't think that that's the case,
Yeah.
Because everyone is treated fairly based on their merit, and everything we've ever accomplished is totally owed to us from our hard work.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit the Biden thing, right? Which was voters in South Carolina like Joe Biden in 2020 because he seemed like a safer bet against Donald Trump. He wasn't a gamble. They were familiar with him, and he had been close with President Obama, obviously. And so in many ways, that was the calculus that powered Joe Biden to win in 2020.
And again, he is the ultimate example, having how many obituaries were written of him, not literal obituaries, but in after New Hampshire and Iowa, saying he's done, like, this is so embarrassing. He came in as the front runner. And then sure enough, the black vote in South Carolina, like, immediately propelled him from, what a disgraceful loss, to like, oh yeah, he's going to be the nominee. Everyone should just like get out of the way.
Yeah.
Odds to win the nomination. Interestingly, again, the 3 top odds people there are Gavin Newsom, AOC, John Ossoff. None of them were at the convention. I am curious whether Ossoff and Raphael Warnock were invited and just couldn't make it, because those are 2 other guys that I think could be in the running to kind of like make a play for the black vote. They've actually won races in the South with overwhelming support from the black vote, and Warnock is, I think, super compelling, and as a reverend of Ebenezer Baptist, like, he's just a really compelling guy. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah. A new entrant into the race this week with Alyssa Slotkin, letting everybody know that she's bringing her alpha energy to the presidential race, maybe, in a interview with the Des Moines Register, which no one talks to the Des Moines Register and think they are, unless they are running for president. She essentially said that she is considering running, but she phrased it as, I'm going to consider, I'm going to be evaluating, I'm going to look to see if there's a lot of people, and maybe I'll do it, which was essentially what she told Playbook in a buzzy feature with Adam Wren a couple of days ago. There's plenty of candidates who've been showing up in South Carolina and New Hampshire and building their profiles, and if I can say it, running a very 1997 presidential campaign, writing a book, and doing it in a more traditional way for months. I mean, at this point, maybe years. Also saying she's surveying the field. I am ready to find that candidate who's going to shake things up, lead from the front, not the back, and take us into whatever this new chapter is, because what we did in the past didn't work. And it seems like she is looking for a freshman senator from the great state of Michigan to guide us out of it. Jonathan Martin with a sort of snarky tweet on this. Slotkin wins Senate seat with under 50 thanks to third-party candidates. Waits all of a year and change after being sworn in, start running for president and taking out the chainsaw on would-be rivals, which I thought was interesting. I mean, I it's just funny the way Slotkin is sort of proceeding into this because, she's saying, well, I mean, I don't know who it could be. It seems like it's got to be me, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think there's something to be said for she's been touring the middle of the country. Like she was in Idaho, she was in Overland Park, Kansas. She was in Ohio this past weekend after Iowa. She keeps saying that that what works in the middle of the country works in America writ large, and that's not necessarily always the case about the coasts where, which tend to dominate the Democratic Party. Like, I think that's true. I think she is good at talking, which is important. She talks like a normal person. I think like the alpha energy thing, not my favorite bit of hers, but I watched she did this town hall in Kansas, Vote Vets town hall. And I mean, when you watch her for like a full hour plus, she's really, really good. And she tends to like genuinely resonate with a lot of people in the middle of the country. She did this focus group with Trump voters when she was in Iowa. At least one of them came away talking to the, papers saying like they would consider voting for her. I think she's smart and doing a lot of interesting things. Her background, she has won. She flipped a Republican House seat and then she won in Senate, in Michigan Senate race, even as Kamala lost Michigan. So I think she's a compelling speaker, but I do think it's a major risk to be throwing bows like this, where it's like everyone else is running a 1997 style campaign and like I'm only doing this because everyone else sucks.
Yeah, 100%.
That's like a good way to put a target on your back.
The markets have her priced pretty interestingly. If you look at Kalshi and all the above, they have her below Graham Plattner but above Roy Cooper at 0.8%. Polymarket doesn't even list her, which I think is insane. And Predicted has her below Stephen A. Smith, which I think that's a little listen, do I think that Alyssa Slotkin has a clear lane as she jumps into the race? No. But I can see there are people for whom like that is an appealing candidate. It's just sort of, the idea that she wouldn't even be listed in Polymarket feels a little crazy to me.
Yeah, but I mean, like, again, we're not taking any money from any of these guys, and like I wouldn't put a ton of stock in like the super early ratings here. It seems like there are a lot of people like Slotkin, Gallego, others who like seem very clearly to be like thinking seriously about a run, and have a lot more to offer, and they're like way down in the rankings. And then you've got like Michelle Obama in there. It's like anyone that's ever talked to either Obama is like she would rather jump off a building than run for president.
She ain't doing it. But here's what I did think was interesting. There was a market on Kalshi where they say who's going to be the Democratic VP. And they have her at 3%, which to me is insanely low. They have her below Wes Moore and Mark Kelly. I also want to briefly pause and say this market is insane. I mean, I'm just like looking at this. Whitmer at number 1, Talrico at number 2. There's no way that James Stout, no matter who, maybe there's a world where he wins and runs for president and whatever. There is no way a Democrat, if he wins the Senate race, is going to pluck a Democratic senator out of Texas who would then be replaced by a Republican, a Republican governor. There's literally no way, but they have him at number 2. I mean, it's total nonsense.
I mean, yeah, I would not put James Talrico certainly that high on the list. It's like, because you also have to think about who would be selecting him. You know what I mean? Honestly, Kamala is kind of the only one that jumps out to me as like, I could see her wanting like a younger white guy who's
but then there's like a whole
he's not the only
won't cost you a Senate vote. I mean, there's just know what I mean.
The Senate vote thing makes it like a total non-starter. I guess maybe he could lose the Senate race and then be picked as the VP.
But I do think I think sort of frames up a little bit the lens of the Slotkin stuff, which is like I do think that she's for the right person, a compelling vice president. Mostly because like there's a world where somebody wins who doesn't have national security experience. Slotkin is sort of career CIA, career National Security Council, and so there's a argument that you might want someone who's got that, and she's got this sort of brash way of speaking. You can see why someone would find her to be super valuable in that context. So I think 3% likelihood.
It's all the same reasons that she was chosen to give the Democratic response to the State of the Union, a few months after we lost to Trump. Well, you lost. I was,
you were lost.
I was trying to win other stuff or something.
I want to show this video of Slotkin at the majority Dems confab where she diagnosed what went wrong in 2024.
Trump and the Republicans had their talking points on the economy. That's all they talked about constantly. And for Democrats, we talked about all the issues. And so no one could figure out what our priorities were. And I think in a perfect world, Democrats would have come out of that drubbing, done the autopsy, and been like, okay, here's the plan. Here are the 3 points. Here's what we're doing. We're all on the same page. Democrats, as a big tent party, have not been in the habit of having some chain of command leadership, some alpha energy at the top saying, you know what? We care about lots of things, but we gotta win.
I like, first of all, this whole thing of that Democrats are not used to having somebody in charge. Sure seems like that person should be me.
Yeah, it's a kind of a funny bit.
But her analysis is, I mean, it's not incorrect, right? Which is, the Republicans were more focused, Democrats weren't. I think that Republicans were talking about more things in the economy, but it all sort of leveled up to general discontent.
We were only talking about the economy and the size of Arnold Palmer's dick and trans stuff and whatever the fuck else happened. I wouldn't say message discipline is Donnie's best trait,
Yeah, but the Republicans, I mean, they were, I think, I think they were more clearly focused than, and I don't just say that was the campaign. I think about Democrats more broadly.
Totally. I think that is a very real dynamic. And all their ads, a lot of their stuff, even when they were talking about issues, it was all kind of funneling back to and we'll help you be able to afford stuff. And, and to your point, I think that it is a major problem that we just have a laundry list and we've been, we just name check every policy that we've ever supported. We're the literal embodiment of the fucking in this house we believe signs, and it's just it's just nobody knows what you actually stand for if you stand for everything.
Yeah, 100%. But speaking of who has alpha energy, no less than Alyssa Slotkin has alpha energy. Here's a little cut.
And then on the second side of it, just bringing a little alpha energy back into the party.
Alpha energy.
And then number 2, if I can be frank, is a little harder to grab onto. It's people are looking for a little alpha energy.
Yeah.
And I think I had a little bit more alpha energy than the average Dem.
Alpha energy.
The alpha energy, I mean, sports is our religion in Michigan, right? And it's that coach energy. How are we going to get from the dark place we're in through the tunnel to the light?
Alpha energy.
I talked with Hassan Piker this week, and he essentially said that there was a double standard on you going on Bill Maher's show versus his Twitch stream. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, first of all, I've never been invited on his stuff.
On his stuff.
There are a ton of podcasts or invites that I've not taken. And every politician has to make their choice. They have to make a decision about what they're going to go on. So I've been on Bill Maher, I think this is my 4th time. That's just how I feel, given some of the things that were said.
I just think this is a tough position to hold, which is I'm alpha energy, I'm blah, 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 da, da, da. And then well, I can't be, I can't go on the show. He's I don't like what he said. It isn't what you would do then go on the show and, and own him.
Yeah.
Alpha him.
Yes.
Alpha Hassan Piker, the beta cuck.
The beta cuck. Yes, I think part of what she said in the longer clip is she was he's constantly calling me stupid on the show. Why would I go on a show where they're always insulting me? And again, maybe that's not alpha energy, but I do think the real core of this question is are you gonna should we be canceling people for going and talking to people that don't agree with them on everything? I don't think that means anyone who doesn't do every interview ever, lacks alpha energy. But yeah, it's a tough. I mean, again, similar to the calling everyone else out for running a 1997 style campaign. You kind of
you got it.
Kind of then looks bad when you're setting yourself up for failure when you're then don't do alpha energy over here.
Yeah.
Speaking of from wannabe vice presidents to current vice presidents and wannabe presidents.
I was going to say, I want two wannabe presidents.
J.D. Vance has had a rough little stretch here,
Tough
especially overseas. He's famously currently in, or not currently, I guess maybe he's back now from Islamabad. But, you know, he was dispatched to try to save Trump's very smart and tactical war that he so wisely led us into for no reason. You know, after I'm happier with the outcome of J.D. Vance ending up in like a little room with a bunch of Iranian negotiators than I am with nuking and erasing their civilization. But, you know, it kind of a capstone on a tough week for JD. He was dispatched to Hungary, and there was this great clip of him at the rally that he was doing. That was not an election rally, but he was like, "But you should vote for Viktor Orban." He called in to get Trump to live say some words to the Hungarians, and it went well.
Let's hope he actually answers. So this is going to be very embarrassing. All right.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet.
He holds it up to the microphone,
Try
like just
one more
to broadcast his shame, which I kind of appreciate.
I love that. Two funny things about it. One, just headquarters, a client of mine, and
good disclosure.
Just we have ethics here on Nobody Knows Anything.
I find that if you don't have clients,
it makes it way easier.
Income's hard.
But also, here's to say, JD, we know a lot about fixing technical issues and connectivity issues. So
Right.
Come, give us a call. Give us a call on that one. Pretty tough.
Almost immediately after he, I don't think this was actually his fault, but it's hard to say. Orban's chances of winning the election in Hungary drop almost immediately, and just as of a few hours ago, he has conceded. So another huge win for JD. You've got this incredible tweet.
Visits Pope. Pope dies. Leads Iranian negotiations. Talks collapse. Flies to Hungary to prop up Orban. Orban loses in a landslide. Man's got a streak. That's from Election Enjoyer on Twitter.
So
he really is just kind of the bad news bears on this stuff.
Yeah, and no one's gonna remember the Hungary thing, I don't think. But I do think the war continues to be a legitimate threat to his political future. I think he's trying to do this dance, and it's an impossible situation. I think he legitimately ran, he ran for the Senate and has made his whole thing being isolationist and actual America first or whatever. And, now he's put in the unenviable position of, a president who wants to eradicate civilizations. And there's been a bunch of stories in the last couple of weeks about JD, kind of being the one person on the inside that was actually trying to stop the president from going forward with this stuff. There was a great story reported out by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan at the New York Times last week. That is from their forthcoming book, which I think will be an interesting read on Trump 2.0 here. And for Vance, it's just there's no good option here, but it does feel like a fundamental threat to his political career to be the isolationist guy. And I do think that that's where at least a chunk of the party is going, but then you're just not gonna, and now he's the face of the negotiation. So
it's a tough place to be, especially when it is not going well, certainly. And, again, it's you want to deliver for your sort of anti-war crowd and you can't, it is it's just a tough position he's yoked to.
Yeah. And again, they've been trying to I don't know if we can get this screen going, but he's been, again, I imagine that his comms people have been working to get in these stories that he was the only one that was legitimately speaking
from
up.
the beginning. It was JD Vance was in the room powerfully attempting to stop the war.
Right. He's unless it goes well.
In which case I loved it.
In which case I was powerfully calling for him to do that. And then again, 21 hours in Pakistan, how Vance tried and failed to end a war he opposed, which I'm sure they're happy about the headline. He's I see, I always opposed, and then I tried to get us out of it. He kind of just became the point man of this thing. The anti-interventionist vice president is now inextricably linked to the outcome of the war with Iran. I don't think he liked that subhead as much as the last headline. That's from the Wall Street Journal. It wasn't an incredible split screen with JD Vance 21 hours negotiating in Islamabad with a fucking team of Iranians, and Donnie J is just at at UFC Miami, like telling fighters that they're super hot. Like, what is happening? Like, what? And little Marco, even a bigger win for JD. Like, little Marco's just there, like shooting the shit with Dana White from UFC. Like, it is just like, again, I try not to do like, this is not normal, like resistance slop, but like, it is fucking crazy to have a guy who holds like 18 national security jobs for us and the president just like chilling with Dana White and hot ladies at like UFC, while JD Vance, a 40-year-old man who like wrote a book about the Appalachians and accidentally ended up vice president, is just trying to like broker a deal that like Obama administration took like 18 months of diplomacy.
Dude, it's amazing. But it's also like, it is normal. This is what we do, man. You know, you got people at UFC fights to kiss the ring. You've got people who, I mean, even like the A-team is like a New York real estate guy and friggin' Donald Trump's like son-in-law. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like
that part is like maybe the most crazy. And
that like people actually are like, Wickoff, like
he was okay on some stuff, and like he was being dispatched like straight from like the Ukraine. It's like he's gonna solve the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and then he's gonna fly, and in the middle of that, he's gonna take some like Qatari bribes, and like he's got it, and like even Kushner was like, I'm still doing business with all of these people, which is very convenient. That's actually gonna be like a 2-for-1 meeting for me, because I needed to ask them how they were funneling me money for all my consulting, comms consulting for Mohammed bin Salman when he chopped up a Washington Post journalist. Like, this is crazy. The two of them are the only other Americans. Like, if you go back to the shot for a second, it's just Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff just like standing in the background of JD Vance being like, I didn't do it. I didn't get the deal. They're like, we did okay though. We had a great, we made some
we made some money.
And then like, I just love this. Like, the only gaps in the deal, guys, it's just the uranium enrichment and the nuclear facilities and the de-escalation framework and the ending of the terrorist proxies and reopening the Strait of Hormuz and then the unfreezing of the Iranian fronts. But other than that,
how did it go?
He nailed it.
It's just everything.
Trump now is saying that we're going to blockade the Hormuz Strait, which I guess is a thing I guess it makes some sense to try to like not let their ships go through so that they're feeling the pain too. But it does feel like a kind of thing where like it's a very classic Trump projection where he's like, no, I dumped her.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, we're blocking the Strait of Hormuz. It was totally open. Anyways, JD just slowly, his presidential stock is just slowly petering out over the last like a year plus of Trump not being good at president.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Vance. No. And I will just say this. My take is Tucker Carlson. It has been Tucker Carlson. You heard it here first on Nobody Knows Anything. And he's creeped into third place, man. He is the number one non-administration candidate. I think that is.
I am more of a Josh Hawley guy these days.
Yeah.
I think Hawley has played like a good little inside hand where he's like not crossing Trump so much that Trump is like, putting him on blast. He doesn't really vote against things, which might be tough because like he's like, I'm a populist and we should stop cutting Medicaid, but I will vote to cut Medicaid because I don't want the orange man to be mad at me. But like he's done a lot more. He's working with Elizabeth Warren on a lot of stuff. Like he is doing legitimate populist things without being like. I think Tucker is. It's a dicey position to be in right now to be like going full bore on like Trump is the worst because 75% of the base is still with him. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we move on to the most dispiriting governor's race I think I have ever seen, the California governor's race. I mean, you want to feel good about democracy and the state of things, and I have to be honest, there's just nothing about that race that sparks joy. The latest, of course, being the absolutely horrible allegations against Eric Swalwell that came out over the weekend, which we will not go into the sort of depths of it. Needless to say, multiple women coming forward with very credible sexual assault allegations. There was swift rebukes from all over the place, but Swalwell remaining defiant, posting this absolutely insane video yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever it was, saying these allegations are false and he's going to fight. My understanding from folks who are who have talked to folks in Swalwell world is that he's basically gone rogue and is sort of advising himself with basically one guy around him And it is insane. I mean, it is just absolutely insane.
I mean, this is truly just a despicable, like, just drop out and resign. Like that is the least you could do at this point, is drop out and resign and like await your criminal punishment. Because like this is now an issue of the law, like brutal. And it was already a desolate governor's field.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't even mean to put them in the same phrase, because like having bad candidates is not in the same tier as like the disgusting allegations against Swalwell. But like,
yeah.
It's one thing you can say for Alyssa Slotkin and Kamala Harris. I feel like there's a very good chance they have not sexually assaulted dozens of people.
It seems I would certainly believe that. Jeffrey's coming out with and leadership calling for Swalwell to drop out of the governor's race for a swift investigation. And look, I understand that you don't want to. There's a pretextual thing, and the investigation will probably find it's credible, and they will call for him to leave the House. But I find it completely untenable to say that you think he needs to leave the governor's race but not leave Congress. He has to go. What are we? It is unbelievable to me that this man is on any committees. It is unbelievable to me that this man is anywhere. It is unbelievable to me that we have not done that. We, the broader like Democrats, have not done anything. And I don't want to hear the like Gonzalez stuff. I don't want to hear about the like it. This is heinous. You can't hold these things together.
Right. And I find this sickening, and like it is like across the board that this is how both parties react. And I just like, it's because we're seeing now calls for Gonzalez and Swalwell and Sheila Sheriffless McCormick and Corey Mills, like all of them to be expelled. And like, they should all be expelled. Like, this is, frankly, even when Chuy Garcia like pulled the little fast one where he like had his chief of staff file to like run in his seat at the very last moment and then bailed out, so that nobody else could run. And then Steve Daines did the same thing on the Republican side. I'm not saying those things should escalate to the point of expulsion, but like the reticence from the Democratic leadership to like acknowledge that such things are fucking unforgivable. It makes everyone hate government and Congress and politics.
Yep. Andrew Solander reporting there's movement in both parties to boot these four members, Swalwell, Gonzalez, Sheriffless McCormick, and Mills in one go. Sheriffless McCormick, of course, stole FEMA, stole FEMA money to buy diamonds.
Like $5 million of FEMA money.
That's like a movie script of like what a bad congressperson does.
Yes. But yes,
and so movement underway to boot all of these members, including Swalwell. But I have to say, we have an award this week for the Suffering Profiteer of the Week. Oh gosh, okay. Live technology, people, and it goes to Kalshi, who has a market on when will Eric Swalwell drop out over these allegations. The markets have them saying he's going to drop out this week. Seems like the pressure is going to be overwhelming, but he also he gets to decide, and he seems to be a fucking lunatic.
Dude, I mean, again, like in addition to the suffering part of it, the profiteering from suffering, like just the most insider tradable thing ever imaginable.
100%.
Like,
and Eric Swalwell is doing it, because this is the thing with Swalwell. Is not like he is a sexual assaulter, a rapist, whatever. This dude he had an AI startup he was trying to get members of Congress to buy into. He's like a grifter. He's been a grifter.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like the people who like Eric Swalwell are the same people who like fell for Michael Avenatti like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Just like,
and now he's going to need to pay a lot of very good lawyers. So why not insider trade?
Profiteering, I guess.
And I did love this tweet of Nancy Pelosi. Not to besmirch her good name. I love Nancy, but to sell Eric Swalwell. That's funny. Just objectively funny.
Stock down. That is definitely true. All right. We turn from the most dispiriting governor's race in the country to the most dispiriting event in America. We were talking about White House Correspondents Dinner, which is just weeks away. We start with the White House Correspondents Dinner invite ranking. We have tallied up the parties for the weekend. Jesse Larrick in the pole position with one invite between the two of us to the MS Now party. Congratulations.
I'm pretty sure it was meant for Jesse Ferguson. Jesse Lee. Like, surely it wasn't for
and
me.
Jesse Ferguson's was meant for Jesse Tyler Ferguson, you know, so it's sort of like, you know, we're all living in it. Me with the total shutout to MS Now, Grindr, UTA, CAA, Tammy, the Tammy brunch, which is the brunch that happens the day after. NBC Universal Substack, YouTube, C-SPAN, CNN, and of course, the Correspondents Association dinner.
Nothing but upside.
Nothing but upside.
Only
Can
one
only go up
direction
from
to
here.
go from here.
So begins. This is the most wonderful time of the year in Washington, which is when people start asking for invites, you know, but pretending that they got invited on the merits, you know, like that's
totally.
like the whole.
I mean, I've never gotten invited to anything on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I've tripped and fallen my way in. The dinner is in a couple of weeks, but there are markets on Kalshi inexplicably on who will attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Donald Trump at 86%. He has said he is going to go. Sometimes he pulls out, but he is going to speak, which is a thing he hasn't done since I think like 2017. He has sort of said no. And our very courageous White House Correspondents Association has placated him by not inviting a comedian who might be mean to him so that they
Which
can get
is
Mr. Trump.
Objectively very funny.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I think they have Oz the Mentalist coming.
Yes.
The guy who's like, I'll guess your PIN number.
Yeah.
You know?
Trump's is like 1111.
Yeah, exactly. It would be very Donald Trump to have Oz the Mentalist steal everyone's PIN number on the way out. You know what I mean?
I'm sure they have very good OPSEC.
Yeah, exactly. But you can see down here at the bottom, Rob and Jesse, 1% chance one of us attends.
We're
the
on the
dinner.
board, and it
we're
seems
on the
like
board.
it was totally legitimate.
Totally
and put there by
legitimate.
Kalshi.
That's there, and nobody's asking questions. I have to say, the dinner is awful. Awful.
Have you been? You've been.
I've been a couple times, and because the thing is like when you're in the party in power, I was in the lowest possible tier.
Yeah.
But like I got invited.
You're like
because
at a
of that.
table with like Jeffrey Toobin.
Yeah, way in the back. I think I went with the Associated Press 2 years in a row.
Oh, there you go.
And
Respectable.
You sit there, you have the worst banquet meal you've ever had in your life. The speeches outside of the like comedian are intolerable, self-referential. They give out awards like best breaking news story, and it's like some oppo that they got pitched by American Bridge. I mean, it's just
That's
like,
crazy.
give me a break, you know?
I didn't even realize that.
Oh my
I
God.
didn't know they had undercard speeches.
Like hours and hours and hours. They like try to make it into the Oscars. Oh my God, just freaking terrible. There's another market on the Correspondents' Dinner, of course, which is what will Trump say during Correspondents' Dinner? Iran, fake news, ballroom, Barack Hussein, Obama, oil, and stock market. People predicting he's just going to give kind of a normal speech, which I think is the right thing. He's done funny speeches before, but like, not even like he'll go to the Al Smith dinner, which is like another sort of miserable confab. Sorry to the Catholic people of America. We really love you and respect it. But you do a week before the election. Harris didn't go. Trump did. And he just doesn't tell jokes. He just kind of is like,
He's not really a joke teller.
No.
He's very funny. Like, he's a very funny individual. I think Democrats don't like to admit that, but
he is very funny.
I find him hilarious sometimes. Less so when he's doing like end civilization, press nuke button, throw everyone out of America, whatever, He's got some bad qualities, but he's funny, but not like, let me tell you a joke. It's like he does things and you're like, that's funny.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be back next episode, but invite Rob and Jesse to your party. And if you if there was a party that we didn't get invited to that you have seen, we'll add it to the scoreboard for next time. We'll tally it up. The winner between the two of us gets to continue to live with the existential dread that comes with living in Washington, D.C. And before we move on to the next topic, just a reminder to like and subscribe this channel. If you're watching it on X, you are a total and complete miserable sicko. But if you're on YouTube, you're the best. And thank you very much for everything you're doing. Remember to hit the like button. Remember to hit the subscribe button. And we go to the Senate, the race for the Senate. Phil Elliott with a story out earlier last week. I'm saying in key Senate races, Schumer willing to help candidates who want him gone, with the article saying it's particularly in Michigan, Schumer has quietly signaled that he would be okay with Senator Mallory McMorrow, even though he has long been supporting the moderate centrist Haley Stevens. And I think this is like kind of an interesting thing that is happening here because we'll sort of walk through it. But Schumer has his preferred candidates, right? He has Janet Mills, who he like ruthlessly recruited in Maine. He has Josh Turek in Iowa. He has Haley Stevens in Michigan. Obviously, he got Mary Peltola in Alaska. He sort of has his preferred candidates. A lot of those preferred candidates are in trouble and struggling.
It's a mixed bag because, as you say, Peltola, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Roy Cooper in North Carolina, all three of them effectively, like, everyone in the party agreed that they were the strongest possible candidate. There's no real opposition to them. So those were like home run recruits that very well may flip the Senate. In the other races, like, I think it's going to be a bad scorecard for old Chucky here. Not terribly surprising. Wouldn't say he's got his finger on the pulse of the average American at this point. 97 years in the Senate will do that to you. This is the right play at this point to be like, obviously, if Plattner wins in Maine, although I think he has a lot more qualms about that, but if Plattner wins in Maine, if Peggy Flanagan wins in Minnesota, where they would have preferred, I think, Angie Craig, but Flanagan seems to be ahead. Like, if Mallory wins or if Abdul El-Sayed wins in Michigan, which could also happen, like, you have to support the Democrat. We need all of those seats. The Senate's going to come down to 1 or 2 seats, maybe. That's the right play. This is what Nancy Pelosi has done forever. She's like, just say whatever you need to say to go get elected. If you need to be like, Nancy Pelosi's the worst, say it, and then good luck trying to not have me be the speaker. I just need 218 warm bodies.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mallory was interestingly, like, I think the first Senate candidate of everyone in the cycle to say Schumer should not be the leader moving forward. So particularly interesting that he is willing to give her the stamp of approval here.
100%. If you look at the odds in the race right now, across markets, everybody's got Mallory McMorrow in Michigan up. El-Sayed gaining a little bit, at least on Kalshi, but there's sort of this consensus that Stevens is sort of drifting away, but the polling is really pretty tight. The average polling has Stevens in second to McMorrow and El-Sayed in third, but surging. There is an interesting, one of the most recent polls that came out was a poll commissioned by McMorrow, where McMorrow's campaign basically argued that she was up 5 on El-Sayed and Stevens was totally trailing. And you can start to see that McMorrow's campaign is sort of clearly trying to get into a 1v1 with El-Sayed, pick voters off from Haley Stevens, and is trying to do that on the insider track. On the sort of voter track, you can see that, I think this fight that she's having with Hassan Piker is an attempt to try to win sort of Stevens base voters, a lot of whom are sort of Jewish voters who are outside Detroit, by picking that fight and try to close it down.
Yeah, and I think it's a smart calculation. I mean, case in point, Chuck Schumer kind of tipping his hand that he would be okay with it, because I think that she has calculated correctly that the establishment will be fine with her, and she would rather have a one-on-one against Abdul El-Sayed, and they very much, the establishment does not want Abdul to be the nominee. So, I mean, it's a smart play. I think she would be fine in a one-on-one against either of them, but it does make sense to me to try to, like, isolate Abdul El-Sayed, because she will win sort of the moderate progressive and the moderate centrist, were that the case. But it doesn't seem to me like, I mean, it's basically a 3-way tie at this point, and I don't see any indication that Haley Stevens would drop out. No, what do you think?
No, I mean, I don't think there's any, like, if I'm the Stevens campaign, I'm not thinking about dropping out because she's, depends on the poll, doing pretty well. And there is this dynamic that I think she does not speak to the aesthetics of people in Washington, certainly. And there's, all the clips that bounce around of her being sort of awkward. But I think a lot of people from Michigan, like that, they have aunts and, family members who are just like Haley Stevens and have the accent and do all that stuff. And so I do think, like, McMorrow obviously needs to close the race down and move as many voters as she can and sort of put Stevens, and needs to be competitive with her and not El-Sayed. But man, like, I don't know. There's no reason. The only thing that's brutal about that Michigan primary is how late it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all the way
August 14th,
I mean, it's super late.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is, like, you're just in this brutal primary, and then you're, like, right in the general election.
Yeah,
Brutal.
and I think that the national atmospherics are going to be heavy enough in Democrats' favor, barring something totally unforeseen over the next few months, that, like, even if we end up with Abdul El-Sayed as the nominee and that doesn't get resolved until super late and it's been a super hostile primary, I think that Democrats will still be fine, but Republicans are all unified behind Mike Rogers here, that he's a pretty strong candidate, all things considered. So it's a little dicier of a situation than you'd
I
want
think
to be
there's
in.
a lot of Republicans who vote for Democrats, but boy, if a normal seeming Republican rolls up, they're like, thank God I'm going to go vote for, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's like a never Trumper who's like literally never Trump and then is, like, nah, but he's, like if Charlie Baker showed up, they'd crawl over coals.
Right. And again, like, I think Abdul El-Sayed would still win, but that's a much harder crawl for someone who's like, I've always voted Republican, but I'm not like super happy with the country.
Yeah.
The current direction of the country, like that's a bit like Abdul El-Sayed is for Medicare for all, and has been outspoken about a whole bunch of issues that have rubbed people the wrong way.
Yep, and we will move on to Maine, where Graham Plattner is basically kicking Janet Mills' ass. You can see every market basically has it as a foregone conclusion, including the Plattner campaign is basically speaking of it as a foregone conclusion. Also seems like the Mills campaign is speaking of it as a foregone conclusion. Looking at the polling, I mean, Graham Plattner, the averages just have him all the way up. Maine, of course, a difficult state to poll, but like not that. I mean, 20 points is 20 points up, man. I mean, that is a runaway.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I get the thing where it's like, oh, Janet Mills has won statewide multiple times. Like, she's the sitting governor of Maine. Of course, that's the strongest candidate. Like, it was just so obvious to me from the beginning that like running someone who's going to be 79 years old before they would take their, oath of office and have, 6-year term, like after the Biden debacle, no offense, like just like a crazy time to run like and to think that an establishment moderate 79-year-old is the best candidate,
Yeah. Well, Janet Mills seems to have dropped all of her attack ads, but it says she's full steam ahead. Sort of a snafu last week where it seemed like she was pulling out of debates, but she wasn't. And then she said, well, I'm going to different debates. And now she sort of pulled her ads down. She's dark on TV. Plattner is up on TV. The fundraising delta is like pretty high. She put out her fundraising numbers last week, which was like less than she raised in the previous quarter, which is not good. Plattner hasn't put his numbers out, but he has raised a ton of money. I mean, it's just like, she is not in a good position.
No, and you don't want to be in this situation where you are the sitting governor and you're like a heavy underdog and having to go all negative. Yeah, just a tough spot.
She is in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of questions around D.C. about whether or not she's thinking about dropping out, and this is why she's pulling the ads down. I have no insider information on that.
I put a little feeler out to a couple people that are maybe in the loop. I did not get a response.
Yeah, it seems like
talk to me when you get like one invite to a White House Correspondents Dinner.
You have one.
I have one. Yeah, that was a favor, basically.
I have 0. But yes, it seems like we are. She is in a bit of a tough situation. Plattner, for his part, saying that it's over. Pivoting to the general.
I'm not sure that's like he's not like running ads that are like, hello, it's over.
It's me.
It's me, it's over.
Plattner's team is signaling that it's over. The interesting thing that's in it, though, is this implicit message. He put out a memo last week essentially saying that Mills' negative ads aren't working. And this was always sort of the thing, right? Mills went really hard at him, has been hammering him on, the allegations about, the way he talked about women and sexual assault and all these kinds of things. They are saying it has not moved the dial at all. And this is sort of the question, right? This is why you want Mills to go negative on him right now, because you'd rather it be him than Susan Collins in the Senate Leadership Fund.
Right. And I think like that was always the question was going to be, does this hurt when you put a bunch of gross rating points behind, hundreds of thousands of dollars of ads, like circulating these comments that people may not have seen, does that damage him? It seems so far the answer is no. I do think it helps that he had done like 50 town halls across Maine before this came out. And like a lot of people have heard from him directly where he's addressed those questions directly. And again, something to be said for like actually going places and talking to voters.
Yeah, 100%. I do think it's interesting watching what Schumer is doing, though, to the initial point. Last week, or maybe actually this was a couple of weeks ago, Axios reporting that Chuck Schumer has deployed Susan Collins messaging out of Senate Majority PAC, which is the super PAC that helps elect Senate candidates, and they move money to different sort of places and different groups and all the above. He's going negative on Collins. He's not really doing anything to help with Mills, which is obviously there's plenty going on, but it is interesting to me that he's in a position where he doesn't want to injure Graham Plattner, because it seems like Plattner may well be the nominee, and you don't want that stuff out there. It seems like there's just not enough to get him over the hump.
Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall at this point, and everyone's like, well, we're not going to go nuclear on the nominee.
Yeah.
Unlike in some of the Republican races.
Yep, 100%. Before we transition to the Republicans, a news story out from Notice this morning from a reporter who went to high school with Graham Plattner, detailing how Graham Plattner ran for student body president. And when he was debating them, he was wearing a revolutionary proletarian costume, overalls, and a red armband. He said he had a history presentation to give that day. This is 100% why I'm just like, oh my God, he's that guy. You know what I mean?
You've always hated Graham Plattner.
Oh my God. I just, and it's not even on the merits of him on substance. I'm just sort of like, oh, I don't want to hang out with that guy at all.
I think he's pretty compelling.
Great.
I mean, he does a better job of like nailing the populist message than I think most of the messengers do. And like, I think aesthetics matter more than we want to admit. And like, this is one thing that Trump is obviously a master at branding and like knows that the only thing that matters in his mind is like how things look on a TV screen. But like, it may be eye roll stuff to you that like Graham Plattner, oh, like he's just like this aw shucks oysterman, that's pun intended, shucking. And like, but I think that it plays when you see like, you know, Dan Osborne's got a good look in Nebraska. Like when you've got like the gruff, like tatted up guy, you know, like it just works for him, I think, even if it doesn't work for you.
100%. We move now to the Republican side, where there are just as interesting primaries, probably just as dispiriting for John Thune as they are for Chuck Schumer.
It's going to be an interesting month or two for old Trump here. Louisiana Senate primaries first. I think, you know, Bill Cassidy is the incumbent sitting senator. He's in a world of trouble in this race. They got a primary on May 16th, and then it will go to a runoff almost certainly. Trump has endorsed Julia Letlow. I do still find it very funny that Cassidy like twisted himself into 1,000 pretzels to like not anger the Trump world people. He like found a way to endorse RFK, even though he is like whole thing was like vaccines are real and we can't fuck with that. And it got him nothing, which is a good lesson for everyone. But you know, Letlow and then Fleming, you know, like there's two MAGA candidates here. And so when you look at the polling, you think, oh, well, look, it's a three-way tie basically. The problem is, you know, even if Cassidy makes the runoff, he's then going to be running against one of these two MAGA candidates, and there's almost no chance that he emerges from that as the victor. And so you see I think there's polymarket odds here. You know, Cassidy, despite being basically tied in the polling, is only at 9% to win the seat, and that's because he's expected to lose a runoff to whichever of these two he would, you know, if he makes it that far. And then similar situation in Texas. You know, Ken Paxton famously, everyone thought Trump was going to like do the smart thing politically and endorse John Cornyn after Cornyn narrowly edged out Paxton in the first round. Now they're in the runoff, and that never did come. And now Paxton seems to be cruising to a victory here. He's got, you know, basically 60% odds in the markets. And I think there's two factors here. One is, you know, if you look at this is from Race to the White House, where a lot of our composite polling is from. And, you know, basically you're looking at a 75-25 race against Cornyn and 50-50 race against Paxton. So that's one major problem for Republicans is this could be a real coin flip race. Maybe not quite a coin flip. I think we have a history of, you know, thinking Texas is winnable and then only to lose it. Your boy Beto, one of your many former candidates. But the other dynamic here that brings Cassidy back into it is like, you may well end up in a situation where like you've already got Tom Tillis, you've got Susan Collins who needs to buck Trump a lot, you know, to try to hold on to her seat in this environment in Maine. You've got Lisa Murkowski who bucks Trump frequently. And now you're going to have two more senators who have nothing but resentment toward Trump for he easily could have pushed both of them across the finish line here. They're going to be in the Senate for like 6 or 7 more months. And like, they may end up causing Trump some problems here on votes where he needs basically every Republican to fall in line.
Yeah, 100%. It is, the Texas stuff is particularly crazy. Like he's just sort of letting it hang in the wind. I mean, it's bad for everybody.
And they've been like, I referenced it, you know, alluded to it earlier because like the NRSC has been running like catastrophic ads on like, they're like, Ken Paxton, he is an adulterer. He is a felon. And then they're going to be like, and he is also our nominee.
And my new best friend, Ken Paxton, the conservative choice.
We've always said he was fine. Like that's never. If I was James Talarico, I would 100% just run NRSC ads for the entire general if you end up against him.
Yep, 100%. All right, it is now time for our closing viral segment, Stock Up, Stock Down. And this is a very special episode. It's our very first episode, so we have a very special guest, Brian Tyler Cohen, viral sensation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Rob, Jesse, I appreciate you having me, and congrats on the launch of this thing.
Thank you. Literally dozens. I would actually say that's ambitious. Literally singles of people are watching this.
I know my mother-in-law is watching.
I'm happy to say hi to the tens of people out there.
Thank you. My mother is a huge fan, and this is like I'm like a Make-A-Wish kid who you have granted like a nice wish. Mom, check it out. It's Brian Tyler Cohen. Brian, the host of No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, the founder of Chorus, a very important organization that helps foster creator talent. We were rejected, and it's good to have a peer in terms of reach and influence.
Right, much like Brian, we're often the #1 show on YouTube for the week.
For the week, it's pretty cool. So.
We are all the number 1 shows in our parents' houses.
Exactly. Streaming on Jane Flaherty's television. Joan
Larrick.
Joan Larrick.
Great,
so
great
this
mom.
is huge. This is huge for all of us. Brian, I believe you have a stock up.
I do. First things first here. Tom Steyer's stock instantly went up. And this is, of course, in the aftermath of Eric Swalwell's explosive allegations where, it's not even clear what the future of Eric Swalwell's career, even in Congress, is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say he's not long for Congress. I would hope. One would hope.
Yeah. One would hope he would be gone. I would say that the markets reacted very funny to this, which was 2 things I thought was really funny. First of all, this is Kalshi, and the story sort of comes out. Matt Mahan swells in the markets because all of these tech weirdos think he's like totally going to win. and then the story comes out and Tom Steyer surges. It's amazing.
I mean, it's not the strongest field. Like, I'm not saying you screwed us over, Brian, but if you had run for governor of California, you would very well be the front runner.
I think if anybody had run for, what? Like Tom Steyer's saving grace here was that he managed not to abuse anybody.
Yeah.
As opposed to Katie Porter, couldn't not abuse her staff. And Eric Swalwell, with these allegations against these women, I mean, like, all Tom Steyer had to do was not abuse someone, and that is enough to make you governor of California.
That'll do it. The only thing that he abused was juvenile in the infamous dancing bit that he did in South Carolina. Check this out.
Circa 2020.
Circa 2020. I got to tell you, he is backing that ass up. So he does a move here that I do at weddings.
I've seen it.
Which is look at the hand gestures where he's like rowing the boat. He doesn't know what to do. You were at this, Jesse.
Yeah, I was bumming around South Carolina, just scoping out. I was like, I bet 6 years from now, I'll start a stupid blog about who's going to run in 2028. So I wanted to get ahead of the curve,
What's remarkable is this video is still going.
What Tom Steyer is doing is white even by South Carolinian standards.
Yes.
I do love it. He's like, I'm going to appeal to the voters of South Carolina by dancing like that.
And you know what? Like, give him credit. Tom Steyer knows his audience. Like,
100%.
Like everybody in that crowd right there is like, you know what? This guy sees me.
Right. and much like his gubernatorial campaign, he spent about $100 million and got 8% of the vote.
That's right.
So yes, I agree. Tom Steyer, a rising stock.
A rising
stock.
A rising star in the Democratic Party. A sprite, 68 years old. That sounds about right for the
listen, we love young talent and we love young progressive talent. That's why the Fight Agency is jumping in there. And you know what? They're gonna Morris Katz is now influential. He's gonna be loaded.
Yeah.
Morris, please buy us, sponsor us. This show brought to you by the Fight Agency.
The Fight Agency.
Look, and if TVPN can get bought by OpenAI,
right?
Rebecca and Morris can totally buy us.
Famously, they love washed-up Democratic, moderate Democratic operatives.
Is this how it goes? Episode 1, Episode
Yeah.
1, the actual content in and of itself is just asking people to buy you.
100%. We're ambitious. We're ambitious. You know, we got to start. We got to start somewhere. You know. Well, I have a stock down, which is DNC chair Ken Martin. The Washington Post with a story yesterday, or no, 2 days ago, whenever it was, that the DNC expected big money after the big Democratic wins in 2025, but the large checks did not flood back. The DNC major donor team in a major struggle. The DNC grassroots donor team is like keeping the place afloat. So, you know, it's really the $25 donations that are saving that, and the big donors haven't come back.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old Will Rogers quote. It's like, I'm not a member of any organized party. I'm a Democrat.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Martin, there was this great tweet from Natasha Korecki, DNC chair Ken Martin, trying to calm nerves on lagging RNC and fundraising. We don't need to outraise Republicans, Martin said. We just need to raise enough money to be in the ring to be able to compete and fight. Brother, no, we need to raise the money. We need to outraise the Republicans.
I'm pretty sure that was a Muhammad Ali quote, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
exactly. I was like, have you ever seen a boxing match? Like, famously, you do not want to be in the ring with no punches and no defense.
The major donor troubles are nothing new over there. This is from January. Vulnerable House Republicans confronting Ken Martin over the committee's anemic fundraising. But then last year, same person, Natasha Korecki, DNC chair Ken Martin shrugs off DNC's lopsided fundraising when compared to Republicans, saying it's no surprise Donald Trump has sold the government to billionaires. So now it's that it went from money's not even good, and now it's like, well, we don't even need it.
I mean, you know, it's not especially surprising. How much money went to the Sphere? Like, in
Hey!
Rob
the
will
Sphere,
die
the
on this
Sphere was
hill.
the Sphere was a good buy. All right. Here's the actual thing about the Sphere. The people were like, "Why'd you spend gazillions of dollars on the Sphere?" We got it for $400,000. That's nothing. It's a steal. It's a steal.
Misinformation really is out of control these days.
Yeah, we had important things to spend money on.
Until this moment, I had been wondering who was responsible for this.
You're looking at it, brother.
That's why he's been reduced to doing
That's why I'm on a show.
Is that why you're on this show? Is that
Rob's
how the
still paying down
title?
the
Is that how the
debt.
title of the show? Is that how the title of the show came to be?
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing: the Sphere guy. This is the indentured punishment for the DNC, which is that I have to do this show until we earn it back. You know, so please buy our show, Rebecca and Morris. But you know, listen, I'm committed. I'm doing this show. Ken Martin not committed. Last year, famously, for those who were not paying attention, was leaked on a call saying, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And he got the recording. I get it, brother. It's a hard job. And here's the thing. Ken is he is a nice man. And the thing with Ken is he was the Minnesota DFL chair.
Yeah.
He came out of the state party chairs, and sort of the dynamic in the DNC chair race was that basically everybody who was an operative, Pelosi, all the big donors wanted this guy, Ben Wickler, who was the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party. And who's great. And like was who I was supporting. And Ken Martin had the support of a lot of the state party chairs because that's sort of the world he came from. State party chairs, way more leverage in who gets to decide the DNC chair. And so Ken won, and he won by making a lot of promises to state party chairs. And in doing that has spent a lot of money to continue, make those promises to state party chairs to do as much as previous chairs. And it has led to a DNC that is, in addition to what they took on for the campaign, the massive Sphere budget, and the debts that sort of a traditional campaign, like the Obama campaign had, $7 million in debt when they came out too, additional debt spending that has been going on at the DNC.
Yeah. And I don't need to defend Ken Martin here. Like, I don't think things have gone smoothly here. But also, I have some sympathy for him because, let's be honest, our brand is not good right now. Like, it's not a good time to be like, we are the establishment of the Democratic Party. So, there are people I think that could raise more money or be more compelling messengers for the party. But I also think it's kind of a job that is a tough one for anyone to navigate. Amanda Lippman, our old pal, wrote a good piece this week on how nobody really understands what the DNC does and is responsible for. And so I think he's just in a tough spot, but
That's weird because every time I go onto Twitter, the DNC, I'm pretty sure the DNC is responsible for everything.
Exactly.
It's all powerful.
They're like,
all
Trump
powerful.
is about to
both,
nuke Iran because of the DNC somehow.
It is both the most inept organization in the world, but also simultaneously responsible for every woe that has ever taken place.
Exactly. It's a thing. It's all these people are like, the DNC is terrible and also controls the weather, you know?
It's like the old joke. It's like the portions are, the food was terrible and the portion's so small, you know?
Exactly. And, you know, Guy Cecil, who is the former head of Priorities USA, a big super PAC, a Dem operative and person who's very well connected, tweeted, huge debt, meager fundraising, scaled back plans which were already too small, and repackaged stale ideas isn't where we should be. Democrats around the country, including many DNC staffers, are busting their ass, but the DNC leadership is failing us. How long can this go on? And Matt Iglesias tweeting, then deleting. Is there some mechanism by which we can just do a DNC coup and install Ben Wickler to fix this? Giving the job to Martin because he promised side payments to various state party chairs with money he can't raise is not a good way to run the show. And here's the thing. Here's what I will say. I was on the Biden campaign in 2019. I ran digital. I came in late in the primary, and digital was not a thing that we had invested in a lot as a campaign for Joe Biden.
Which is good because there was not a global pandemic. Like, it would have been a terrible time for a global pandemic to hit.
And so there's this thing where, you know, we come out of the campaign, the world is on fire. We have a digital team that is like, I think, 10 people. And we needed to rely on the DNC. And the thing is what's going to happen at the end of this primary, this is one thing the DNC is really, really important for, is what's going to happen at the end of this primary is that whoever wins is going to be broke and exhausted. And the nice thing about 2020 was there was a DNC team that we could plug right into to do big stuff. And right now we have a DNC that is spending tons of money on crazy side projects, basically, while there are amazing staff there who are grinding, working really hard. And like, I think about that grassroots fundraising team that is raising tons and tons of money to keep the lights on. But it just feels to me like what is going on at the top is not setting up the party for the things that it actually needs to be focused on.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think it's bad to be sending money to invest in state parties. Like,
but you just have to have the money.
Yes, that's a major problem. That's one of the few
I think you should be
drawbacks.
sending money to state parties. I think we should be spending tons of money to state parties, but you got to go raise it. And if you're the chair of the party, you either have to be good at fundraising or be good on TV. You can't be neither.
Yes, I do think that's a problem. I do think we should have gone with someone who's either a compelling messenger for the party or filthy rich or knows all the people who are filthy rich. And Ken Martin seems to be none of the above. But on the other hand...
that position is also, I mean, look, maybe our collective expectations for the DNC chair, because it's always been disappointing, but like that position seems just like it's like hosting the Oscars, right? It's like what mayor of New York used to be before Mamdani. I mean, it's just like a miserable spot to be in, and I feel like it's a lose-lose. You know, I don't know. I feel like I would love to have seen Ben in that position. I feel like, you know, there are still Ben's still got a long career in this whole space anyway, and so I'm excited to see what he does next. I don't know that relegating him to DNC chair would have you know achieved what we're hoping it would have.
That is true.
It is true. We don't want to bind his upside like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it is true if you think about it. It's like Tom Perez, Martin O'Malley, like Howard Dean. Like the DNC has just been like chaired by people who are like doomed to lose whatever they run for.
Oh man. Okay, we have a new stock. We have a stock up from Jesse.
Yes, we talked earlier, Rob, about the National Action Network, where also known as Sharpton Fest, where no fewer than Sharpchella, nice. No fewer than 9 presidential hopefuls flocked to make their case. Almost none of them, as far as I can tell, have Sharpton asked every one of them, like, are you going to run in 2028? Nobody said no. And that's sort of a running theme here. I pulled some headlines together, just a few. This is like by no means the total span here. We got Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Josh Shapiro, Alyssa Slotkin, Ruben Gallego, Ro Khanna, J.B. Pritzker, Gina Raimondo. Like, hell yeah. Nobody is ruling 2028 out. And that's why my stock up is Lectern makers. It's going to be fucking terrible for everybody else. But man, like we're looking at debate. Look at this debate stage. Like, if you are a lectern maker, it is boom times, baby. It's going to be like, tune into night 7 of the DNC debates where Gina Raimondo, Al Gore, and the guy who threw the sandwich at an ICE officer are squaring off in night 7 of the Democratic debates. Like, Slotkin saying, no fewer. She has a spreadsheet per yesterday's playbook. Has a spreadsheet with no fewer than 29 Democrats. To which I say, are you coming for my fake job where I blog about 1,000 Democrats running for it?
But what is
Also,
she
a
doing
Democrat
with that spreadsheet?
A Democrat having I mean, that's perfect. Like that
course.
automatically
100%.
catapults her up. That's like the most Democratic thing you could possibly have.
I've created a cunning database.
That's right.
We've got
you just
white
couple
papers.
that with a strongly worded letter, and all of a sudden you're top 10% of the field.
Dear colleagues, there are too many of you. I believe I need to. I don't know why that's my Alyssa Slotkin voice.
Alyssa Slotkin automatically gets relegated to like transatlantic accent.
Yeah.
Dearest colleagues, the winter is long and it's bearing down on us.
Hassan Parker, it is bullshit.
She said we need alpha energy, but I mean, maybe what she meant was A1 energy. You know.
Yeah, we've got VLOOKUP energy from the state of Michigan.
Some 8 through 41.
Yeah, nothing like invoking Microsoft Excel in the same sentence as we need alpha energy.
Exactly.
That's the kind of crack analysis you can only get here on Nobody Knows Anything, is what I'll say. Well, that's stock up, stock down. Brian, anything before you go?
I've got one more if I can, and I'm gonna go stock down Rob Flaherty and Jesse Lurick, because I mean, didn't you guys work in the White House? Wasn't your boss the president of the United States?
And here we are.
No offense to all of your parents who are tuning in and enjoying the show.
Hey, I don't want to get accused of anything, so I'll just say all my candidates have lost. I never had the opportunity to work in the White House, man, which is good because I don't think I would have passed vetting.
Listen, we are stepping up to the call of the most important thing you can do as a Democrat. It's go on YouTube. That's how we go to the barricades. That's what we do.
It really is amazing how Democrats only learn one lesson at a time, and they stick to that lesson until it no longer works.
We are sticking to it.
We're like, we got to go on TV, and they're like, let's go on CNN and MSNBC from now until the end of time. And then like 10 years after independent media took off, they're like, you know what? I think we should do podcasts, and everybody has a podcast.
Everybody's doing
now
it.
It's like you, Alyssa Slotkin, Ro Khanna, Chris Van Hollen, Ken Martin, the DNC.
Come through. The water's warm.
Yeah, we'll do our best to send you a couple subscribers, Brian. I know you're hurting.
Yeah,
out there.
I know you're struggling. You know.
No, well, look, I'm messing with you guys, but like I'm glad you're here. I've watched. I've been sent. I don't know if these are public, but I have been sent. No, they are, because I've seen them on YouTube. I've been sent your episodes. I think it's great. I'm really happy that you guys are here. I thoroughly enjoy what y'all do, and excited to see what you can do in this space. I'll be happy to send some folks over to this space as well. But absolutely glad you're here, and grateful for your voices.
You're too kind, buddy.
You're too kind. Brian Tyler Cohen, thanks for joining.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Take it easy, man.
Man, Brian is good.
He brings it, yeah. It really puts a nice lens on how bad we are.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, wow, that is a guy who knows how to run a YouTube show, unlike us.
I'm like, what was my name again?
Yeah, exactly. Do what? Anyway, that is the first episode of Nobody Knows Anything. We were not live tonight, but we will likely be live on Thursday, so you should tune in. Here's what I'll say. A lot of folks were really helpful to us as we were thinking about doing this show, conceiving of doing this show, which we've been working on for like the better part of like 6 months.
Which is, think about how bad it would have been without those people.
You think this was bad and unwatchable. You better watch where we were, 6 months ago. But really, there were a lot of people, and I won't name them all because I think they would be too embarrassed to be associated with this, who helped look at episodes, who helped give us really smart advice. So we are really grateful to all of them and to all of you for actually deciding to watch this. There are literally dozens of you, but we are grateful to all of you. When this show is a massive success, we will remember you as the OGs, baby. We'll make you T-shirts. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's a nice vision.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
We'll try to do better next time.
Anyway, for Jesse Larrick, I'm Rob Flaherty. That was Nobody Knows Anything. We will see you on